Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into a massive 7th century mystery. We're talking about a story that completely flips our modern ideas of status, fame, and success totally upside down. It's the epic story of a man named Uways al-Qarani. So let's just dive right in because this is way more than just history, it's a really profound lesson in hidden greatness.
I really want you to ask yourself this. Why on earth would the most powerful men in the 7th century Islamic world bow their heads to a ragged camel shepherd? Just picture this. The leaders of an expanding global empire, guys who had literally defeated the absolute superpowers of their time, are frantically searching through crowds for a destitute, totally unknown man who herds camels for a living. Why would they actively seek the prayers of someone that society had completely overlooked? Well, to understand this wild paradox, we have to go back to the beginning.
Which brings us to Section 1, A Prophet's Mysterious Prophecy.
It all starts with a highly specific prophecy given by Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, to his closest companions. And the exact, almost forensic level of detail in these clues is just incredible. The Prophet told Caliph Umar that a man would come to him with reinforcements from Yemen, specifically from the tribe of Murad and the branch of Quran. But he goes even further. He told them this man had suffered from leprosy and was miraculously cured, except for a single spot on his hand about the size of a dirham, which is a silver coin, and finally his most defining character trait, his unparalleled absolute devotion to his mother.
But here is absolutely the most shocking part of this whole prophecy. The Prophet gave a direct instruction to Umar, who, remember, was one of his most senior and esteemed companions. He said, if you can ask him to pray for forgiveness for you, then do so. Just pause and think about the gravity of that for a second. The Prophet is instructing the absolute giants of his community to seek spiritual intercession from a total stranger. This single quote alone elevates Owais from an obscure historical footnote into an absolute spiritual heavyweight.
All right, let's move right along to Section 2, the devoted Yemeni shepherd. Let's see who this hidden figure actually was. The contrast between these two figures is just brilliant. On one side, you have Caliph Umar. At this time, he's the leader of a vast, rapidly expanding global empire, commanding armies, literally shaping world history. On the other side, you have Uways al-Qarani, a destitute camel shepherd. His entire worldly possessions consisted of little more than a simple woolen cloak and a walking stick. In the eyes of the world, there's absolutely no contest. But spiritually, the hierarchy is completely inverted.
And because of this deep spiritual standing, Uways was given a highly unique status. In Islamic history, the generation that learned directly from the Prophet are called the companions. The generation right after them are the Tabi'in, the successors. Now, even though Uways was alive at the exact same time as the Prophet, he's revered as the leader of the Tabi'in. Why? Because despite embracing the faith, he never physically met the Prophet. And the reason why he never met him, that's what makes his story so heartbreakingly beautiful. Let's trace this out on a timeline to really understand how it unfolded. Born in 594 AD in Yemen, Uways grew up in extreme poverty. After accepting the message of Islam, his absolute ultimate desire was to travel and see the Prophet. So he asked his frail elderly mother for permission. She gave it, but with one very strict condition. He could go to Medina, see the Prophet once, and if he wasn't home, Uways had to return immediately. So he embarks on an agonizing 3-month journey on foot across the harsh Arabian landscape. That is a staggering distance of over 1,000 kilometers.
So what happens next is absolutely crucial. Uways finally arrives in Medina after 3 grueling months. He knocks on the door, and the Prophet's wife, Aisha, answers. She tells him the Prophet is at the mosque and not at home. Uways is now faced with an impossible choice. The man he loves most in the entire world is just down the street. But he made a firm promise to his mother. Choosing ultimate obedience and filial piety over his own profound desire, he leaves his greetings, turns right around, and walks another 3 months back to Yemen without ever setting eyes on the Prophet.
Yet, physical distance doesn't limit spiritual connection, does it? According to the historical texts, when the Prophet returned home, he felt that spiritual radiance left behind. He famously stated, "I feel a sweet, peaceful breeze from Yemen. The fragrance of our friend is reaching us." He knew Owais had been there. He recognized the immense sacrifice Owais made out of sheer devotion to his mother. And it was exactly this unseen love that cemented Owais's legacy.
Let's fast forward a bit to Section 3, Caliphs Seek the Hidden Saint. The Prophet has passed away, and it's now the time of Omar's caliphate. Years later, Caliph Omar and Ali are actively interrogating every single delegation from Yemen, asking if there's a man named Uways among them. Finally, they get a match.
They track him down near Kufa, finding him completely alone, deep in prayer. Just imagine their absolute awe. The great leaders of the Islamic world approaching a man the locals thought was just a poor, maybe kind of eccentric hermit. They deliver a sacred trust, the Prophet's blessed cloak, the Jubba Mubarak, and they convey the Prophet's specific request that Owais pray for the entire community.
And the number 3 becomes the key to what happens next. Owais takes the cloak, goes into solitude, and starts to pray. In his first stage of prayer, he asks for 1/3 of the community to be forgiven, and it's granted. In the second stage, he asks for 2/3, and it's granted. He is literally just about to ask for the complete forgiveness of the entire community in his third prayer when Umar and Ali accidentally interrupt him. The moment is incredibly dramatic, and it just shows the immense weight of this humble shepherd's supplication.
This brings us to Section 4, Asceticism and Profound Wisdom.
So how did a man with such immense spiritual power actually live his day-to-day life? Well, Owais owned practically nothing, yet his empathy was absolutely boundless. He would say, "O Allah, I offer my apology to you for every hungry stomach and unclothed body." Think about that. He would literally apologize to God for the suffering of others in the world, despite the fact that he himself only possessed what was on his back and in his stomach. It's a staggering level of compassion that completely transcends material wealth. His daily routine was just as intense. Historical accounts tell us that Owais would dedicate entire nights solely to bowing, and then the next night entirely to prostrating in prayer. By evening, if he had any surplus food or even an extra piece of clothing in his sparse home, he would give it all away in charity, so he possessed absolutely nothing. He lived in this constant state of detachment from worldly praise, deliberately choosing to remain among the common folk rather than accepting the generous state stipends or governor appointments that the caliph kept offering him.
Now for our final part, Section 5, the Owais' spiritual legacy.
This incredible life naturally left an indelible mark on history. But Owais wasn't just a passive hermit. When the time called for it, he stood up for what he believed was right. In the year 657 AD, he actually fought alongside Caliph Ali at the Battle of Siffin, and it was there that he made the ultimate sacrifice for his faith. When the battle ended, his body was found among the martyrs, bearing over 40 physical wounds. He died exactly as he lived, giving absolutely everything he had.
But his legacy lived on in a really unique way, known today as the Uways transmission. Because Owais achieved such high spiritual ranks without ever physically meeting his teacher, the Prophet, his name became synonymous with a specific tradition in Sufism. The Owais path refers to spiritual knowledge and guidance being passed between individuals across distance or even time without a physical meeting. It proves that physical proximity just isn't the only way to forge a deep, transformative connection.
So, what does all this mean for us? In a world completely obsessed with public recognition, follower counts, and visible status, does the story of Uways al-Qarani prove that true greatness actually lies in hidden devotion? He reminds us that the people most highly regarded by the divine might just be the ones society ignores the most. The quiet, the humble, those who serve their mothers and expect absolutely nothing from the world. It's a pretty powerful standard to measure ourselves against, don't you think? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it gives you as much to reflect on as it did for me. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.